Hey everybody, putting out some bonus episodes this week for you. I don't know if you've ever been in a place where you're faced with making a big decision and you don't know what to do. And you just wish that somebody would tell you what you should do. Well, unfortunately, I can't tell you what to do. But what I want to do this week is I want to share with you some guiding questions because I believe that a well-placed, timely question helps us to make better decisions. So this week I want to share with you 5 questions that you can ask yourself to make better decisions so that you have fewer regrets in life. And I'm actually taking this from a book that I recently read by Andy Stanley, and the book is called Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. So the first question is called the integrity question. Am I being honest with myself? Really? The truth is, you are a part of every bad decision that you've ever made. There's no one else to blame but yourself. Every bad decision that you've ever made, you are responsible for. But why did you make that decision? I want to press you on that today. Think about a bad decision that you've made in your life, or a series of bad decisions that you've made in your life. It could be a dumb purchase, it could be a doomed relationship, or it could be a destructive habit. Those are the 3 Ds of bad decisions. Why did you do that? We're very good at justifying the decisions that we make. But what's justifying? It's akin to just a lying. We deceive ourselves. We say that we need something when really we just selfishly want it. This first question is forcing you to have a heart-to-heart, to look into your heart and to say, why are you making the choices that you are? Jeremiah chapter 17 verse 9 tells us this: the heart is deceitful above all things. It is beyond cure. Who can understand it? Our own hearts are deceitful. They're misguided. So maybe you've heard, when it comes to making a decision, trust your heart. Go with your gut. I would say, no, do not trust your heart. Do not go with your gut, because the heart is deceitful. That's the sinfulness inside of us. Satan is the original deceiver. He's the original salesman. And you can't trust every salesman. And you can't trust your heart. But what you can do is you can be emotionally curious. Rather than someone else asking you the question, why did you do that? And immediately getting defensive, what if you leaned in and just took a recent decision that you made and you're like, I don't think that was the best decision. Just to ask yourself, why? Why did I do that? Really? To be emotionally curious, to be honest with yourself. As you do that, I think you'll be able to make better decisions and to live with fewer regrets. Thanks for joining me again today. I'll see you again tomorrow with the second question that you can ask yourself to make better decisions. Hey everybody, welcome back to another bonus episode. We're talking through this week how we can make better decisions so that we can live with fewer regrets. Question number 2 that I want to share with you today is the legacy question. What type of story do I want to tell? Did you know that Your story is the result of hundreds and thousands of decisions that you have made. But so often we get caught up in the moment. And when it comes to making decisions, we function with this emotional fog. We only see what is right in front of us rather than choosing to see the big picture. And so this question, the legacy question, what type of story do I want to tell, invites us to press pause on our emotions rather than pushing play. The story of Joseph in Scripture is a good example of this. Joseph finds himself sold into slavery by his brothers. And yet, what type of story does he want to tell? He chooses not to tell a story of bitterness. Later, when he finds himself working for Potiphar and his wife makes advancements at him, Joseph resists because he doesn't want to tell a story of getting caught up in adultery. Joseph pushes pause on his emotions rather than pushing play. And you and I are invited to do the same thing. Maybe you need to ask yourself this question. Think years down the road with your kids and your grandkids, and you're sitting down and they say, tell me the story of your life. How can you tell that story and be completely honest without having to tell a few lies to cover over some bad decisions that you've made? When it comes to living in the moment, that's the question that we need to ask. How can I make decisions now that won't make me a liar for life? Ask the legacy question. What type of story do I want to tell? Be a Joseph. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you again next time. Hey everybody, welcome back to another bonus midweek episode. Coming at you this week, sharing with you 5 questions that you can ask yourself to make better decisions and live with fewer regrets. And taking these from Andy Stanley's book by that same name, Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. Here's my question for you as we get started. Why is it that people that have too much to drink don't make good decisions? Because it's true, isn't it? People who have had too much alcohol to drink don't make good decisions. They make fools of themselves. I've never had anybody say to me, you know what, I was so glad I got drunk because it allowed me to make this good decision. No, it doesn't happen that way. Because what alcohol does is it prevents us from thinking clearly. It actually inhibits the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which allows us to think rationally and to make good decisions. It takes away our common sense. But here's what I realized too. People who have had too much to drink can't make good decisions. But a lot of times, those of us who never touch a drop of alcohol in our lives still make bad decisions. So how do we overcome that? The third question that I want you to think about today is the conscience question. When you're forced with making a decision, ask yourself this: is there a tension that deserves my attention? Think about what's happening in your gut. Think about your emotions. I know I said earlier, you can't always trust your emotions, and it's true, but we must pay attention to our emotions. So is there something that doesn't sit quite right with us? Here too, I would say, ask somebody in your family, ask one of your friends when it comes to making a decision. Is there something that maybe doesn't sit quite right with them? It may not always be true, but sometimes It is true. So is there a tension that deserves your attention? I think about David in the Old Testament. So David was anointed to be the next king of Israel, but there was a problem. Saul was the current king. And David had to choose to patiently wait until God put him on the throne. But there were others around him who tried to push him there sooner than he should have been. So there's this story where King Saul is after David, and David and his men are hiding out in a cave. Well, Saul walks past, and he happens to walk into the cave in order to relieve himself. To go and use the bathroom. And so he's in a corner of the cave, and David and his men are further back in the cave, and they say, "Hey, David, this is it. This is your chance to step in as king. God is delivering him into your hands." And so David takes his sword to go and kill Saul. And yet there's a tension that he feels inside. And he pays attention to that tension. And instead of killing Saul, he simply takes and he cuts off a piece of his robe. And then when Saul walks out of the cave, David walks out after him, holding up a piece of his robe, saying, "I could have killed you, but I realize that God has still put you on the throne, and I'll let him be the judge of when it's time for me to rightfully step onto the throne." He chose to trust God. He chose to trust his gut. I'd invite you to do the same thing when it comes to decisions that you're forced with. If there's something that doesn't quite sit right inside of you, if your conscience is stricken, pay attention to that. Slow down. Don't be quick to make that decision. Spend some time praying on it. Spend some time asking others that you trust around you, is this the right decision to make? As you do that, I think you'll be able to live with better decisions and fewer regrets. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you again next time. Hey everybody, and welcome to another bonus midweek episode. Talking this week about 5 questions to ask yourself so that you can make better decisions and live with fewer regrets. I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to toe the line. I have a tendency when it comes to how I live my life to say, what can I get away with? How far can I go? So when it comes to driving, how fast can I go without getting pulled over by the cop, without getting in trouble? And so often, this is the way that we live our lives. We toe the line when it comes to the decisions that we make. Rather than being careful, rather than being cautious, we're risky. And so this question, this 4th question, is the maturity question. It's the question, what is the wise thing to do? Not what is the right thing to do, but what is the wise thing to do? Because the Apostle Paul says this in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 15 and 16. He says, "Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity because," notice this, "because the days are evil." There are so many factors around us that can influence us to go the ways of the world, to step over that line. And God says, no, step back and think this through. Be a little bit more cautious. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Even the Bible mentions that. It says just because things are permissible doesn't mean they're beneficial. So one of the questions you can ask yourself is, in light of your past experiences In light of your current circumstances and in light of your future hopes and dreams, what is the best decision to make? That's the maturity question. So ask yourself that today, and may you live with better decisions and fewer regrets. I'll see you again next time. Hey everybody, coming at you today with one final bonus midweek episode as we've been talking this week through 5 questions that you can ask yourself so that you can make better decisions and live with fewer regrets. Question for you. What is the golden rule? Do unto others as, that's right, you would have them do unto you. But did you know that there's a platinum rule? Yeah, Jesus actually takes the golden rule and he tweaks it. In John chapter 13, verse 34, he gathers his disciples together and he says, love one another. Sounds strangely familiar. In fact, he says, a new command I give to you. This is different than the old commands. A new command I give to you. Love one another. And then here's the kicker. As I have loved you. He said, by this, everyone will know that you are my disciple, if you love one another. See, here's the crazy thing. You and I will be judged as followers of Jesus, not for the way that we looked up at God and lived in relationship with him, but for the way that we looked around at others and sought to demonstrate love to them. And so the final question, the 5th question when it comes to making better decisions so you can live with fewer regrets is the relationship question. And it's this: what does love require of me? When it comes to the decisions that you're faced with every day, none of your decisions is private. All of your decisions have public consequences. They affect others around you. And so when it comes to the way that you relate to each other, ask yourself, what does love require of me? What does it look like to love others as Jesus has loved you? That's a tough one. The Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 13 digs into this a little bit more. He says, when you love others, you are patient with them, not pushy. When you love others, you are kind toward them. When you love others, you are willing to forgive and pretend to forget. When you love others, you believe the best about them and you forget the rest. So you think of the most generous explanation for their actions. When you love others, you are slow to be angry with them. I don't know, are some of these things convicting you today? I think this is one of the most important questions that we can ask ourselves when it comes to the decisions we make, because our decisions don't only affect us, they affect others around us. So ask the relationship question: what does love require of me? I hope you've enjoyed some of these bonus episodes this week. And I hope that it's led you to think through some of the decisions that you're faced with, some of them big, some of them small, and to realize that every decision you make is writing the story of your life. What type of story do you want to tell? How can you make wise, mature choices? What does love require of you? Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you again next time.